Hello, welcome to Darren Stitches, and today we are going to be drafting the basic sketch block. And here are the tools that we will be needing. Basically, our tape measure, our pattern master, our straight ruler, and our pencil, our paper scissors, because we are drafting paper. So the basic measurements we need to draft a basic sketch block are waist circumference, hip point, our sketch length. Basically, we need these four measurements: your waist circumference, your hip point, and your sketch length. And that is what we will be needing. So the waist circumference I'm working with is 32, hip circumference 40, hip point 8, and our sketch length 23. That's what I'm going to be working with. So the first thing I need to do is to come down on my pattern paper. From the tip of my paper, I'm coming down by 0.5. I'm going to mark that around 0.5. I'm going to get that across my paper and draw an horizontal line across that. Okay, like that. So let me use my marker so that you can see it very well. So here you go. Okay, and I'm going to be labeling this my waistline. That's my waistline. Now from this my waistline now, I'm going to be measuring my sketch length. My sketch length, which is 23. I'm going to mark from the waistline. I'm going to mark 23. I'm going to mark 23. I'm going to mark 23 like this. I'm going to come here to mark 23. I'm going to draw another horizontal line across that. Let's draw a horizontal line across that. Okay, like that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to get the box I need to draft my pattern, and the box I need to get is going to draft my front pattern and my back pattern together. So the hip circumference I'm working with is 40, and I'm going to be marking that 40 divided by 2. I'm going to be dividing my hip circumference by 2. My hip circumference is 40. I'm going to be dividing that by 2. I'm getting 20. I'm going to mark 20 across like this. 20 like this. I'm going to draw a vertical line across that. Okay, so this is the box I'm going to be needing to draft my front and back sketch block. And I'm going to further divide this space by 2. What I have here is 20. So by the time I divide 20 by 2, I get 10. And I'm going to mark 10 like this. I'm going to mark 10 like this. And I'm going to mark 10 like this. And I'm going to draw a straight line. Like this. Like that. So after getting this, I'm going to label this my center front and here my center back, meaning that I'm going to be drafting my front pattern here. I'm going to be drafting my back pattern here. My front pattern is going to be on fold like this. That means I'm going to be drafting this like this, but by the time I'm cutting out, I'm going to be cutting on fold. While this, I'm going to be cutting 2 of this because I'm going to be having my zip allowance here. But that aside, let's go ahead and impute my hip point. I'm going to, from my waistline, I'm going to impute my waist hip point. My hip point, which is 8, I'm going to impute it 8, like this 8, and I'm going to draft that. Okay, I'm going to draw a line across it like this. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to impute 8 inches, which is my hip point, to the back too, and draw my straight line, connect it with a straight line like this. Okay, I'm going to label this my hip line, and where my skirt gets to is going to be my M line. hemline. So the next thing I'm going to do is to impute my waist circumference, my waist measurement, my hip measurement. I'm going to be imputing it. And what am I going to do to that? I'm going to be dividing my waist circumference by 4 and my hip circumference too by 4. So when I divided my waist circumference, which is 32, divided by 4, it gives me 8. So I'm going to come to my waistline like this and mark 8. I'm going to mark 8 like this. And then I'm going to add 1 inch to that 8 and mark like this. And that will be my dart allowance. That will be my dart allowance. So I'm going to connect like this. I can connect with a slightly curved ruler like this. Like this. So I'm using my marker to connect. Now, if you notice, I connect to the tip of my paper. I connected that to the tip of my paper. I'm going to be doing the same thing for my back measurement. For my center back, I'm going to be imputing my quarter of my hip, which is 8 inches. I'm going to impute it like this. And then I'm going to add 1 inch also for my dart allowance at the back too. And then on my hip circumference, now if you divide your box very well, you are going to be getting quarter of your hip at this middle. Now the quarter of my hip is 40 divided by 4, which is 10. You can see it on this line. I have 10. So that's why I connected my waist circumference divided by 4 to this point, because this point is actually quarter of my hip. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to repeat the same thing for my back pattern and connect to the tip of my paper like this. I'm going to connect to the tip of my paper like this. And there you go. You can see it's giving us that curvy nature of your waist to your hip. Now, the next thing we are going to do is to impute our darts. Now, to impute our darts, what I have here, that's the quarter of my waist circumference, which is 8. I'm going to be dividing it by 2. I'm going to be dividing it by 2 and mark like this. When I divided by 2 and mark, I got 4. So I'm going to be marking that by 4. And the same thing I got here, I'm going to come down by 4 again and mark it like this. Now, to ensure you get a straight line, always cross-check with your tape measure. Now, this is my point. This is like 4 inches there and 4 inches there, so as to get my straight line like this. You can see that's my straight line. Now, I'm going to be adding my dart inches. I'm going to be adding it. I'm going to be transferring the dart that I have here. I'm going to be transferring it here. So the dart I have here is 1 inch. So I'm going to be transferring that 1 inch to both sides of my pattern, of my dart line, which is 0.5, 0.5. So I'm going to be having, I have to draw my line like this. Now, I'm going to draw my line, and this line is my dart leg. And by the time I sew that, that's my dart intake. Okay. Now, I've successfully transferred the dart allowance that I added to quarter of my waist measurement. I've successfully transferred it to where it is actually needed. And I'm going to do the same thing to my back pattern. I'm going to do the same thing to my back pattern. Impute half of what I have here, which is 8. I'm going to impute it here. I'm going to be imputing it here 4 inches again. To get my straight line, I'm going to impute it here. Draw my straight line. And the 1 inch allowance, that allowance that I added here, I'm going to be transferring it to both sides of my dart line. And I'm going to draw my dart leg like this. Like this. Ensure you follow this video step by step, and then just follow everything I'm doing, and you have exactly what I have here. Now, the last thing I'm going to be doing now is to come down on my center front by 1 inch. And why am I dropping by 1 inch? Because we need to eradicate the folds that we usually have on our skirts, especially those people that have big tummy. Now, we need to eradicate that. So that's why I'm going to be dropping down by 1 inch. And I'm going to be connecting this to this, my line here. But before I draw that line, I'm going to be closing up my dart like this. By the time I close up my dart like this, I have something like this. And then with my curve ruler, I'm going to be drawing this. I'm going to be drawing this like this to connect this line. So you can see. And with this, I have my basic skirt block for the front pattern. And on the back pattern, I don't need to fold in my darts. I just need to connect from my waistline to the 0.5 that I left here. So you can see that there is a reason why we left 0.5 here. You need to leave that 0.5 if you want to get your basic skirt block correctly. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut out our pattern. We are done. We have our skirt block ready already. So what we need to do is to cut this out. And I'm going to be cutting out the front pattern first. Now, we cut from my hemline. Okay. Now, when you are cutting this, you ensure that your dart is closed before cutting this out. Now, I have my skirt block ready. And by the time I fold this out, you can see what I have. Now, this is my front pattern. I need to cut out my back pattern too. You don't need to close your dart here. You don't need to close your dart. So I have my pattern pieces ready. These are my pattern pieces for my basic skirt block. This basic skirt block can be adapted to a tapered skirt. It can be adapted to A-line skirt. Any type of skirt. It can be adapted to a long skirt, a maxi skirt, any type of skirt. So these are your pattern pieces. You cut this on fold. That means by the time you are cutting this, your fabric will be on fold, and we are going to be cutting 2 of this. So in the next tutorial, we are going to be cutting this on fabric, and we are going to be sewing this. So that brings us to the end of our tutorial today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you. Bye.